Let's start off with this new topic, and the name of this topic is Changing Patterns of Marriage and Cohabitation. Changing Patterns of Marriage and Cohabitation. Marriage is seen as a relationship, a legal relationship, a sacred, holy relationship where the couple legally uh, decides on living their lives together or decides on living together. And on the other hand, when we use the word cohabitation, the word cohabitation refers to a couple, a romantic couple living together without being married. Now, to begin with, first and the foremost, let's talk about marriage here. Now, if we speak about because marriage, if we speak about marriage, marriage is always seen as a universal institution. And when I say it is seen as a universal institution, what I actually mean is marriage is practiced in most societies. And yeah, and hence we use the word universal institution while we referring to marriage. Now, having said that, if we move on and talk about the changes in the pattern of marriage, let me just put up a heading over here. It wouldn't be wrong for us to assume that until recently, Western societies promoted monogamy. Now, for this, we need to understand, we need to know what the word monogamy over here means. A monogamous relationship or a monogamous marriage is when you're married to the same partner throughout your life. Now, hand in hand with the monogamy, it is also important that you know what serial monogamy is. When we use the word serial monogamy has to do with when a serial, we use the word serial monogamy when a couple is married to one partner at a time, but you could have several partners during your course of life. So until recently, since we're talking about the changes in the pattern of marriage and cohabitation, it wouldn't be wrong if we end up saying until recently rather, until recently, Western societies promoted monogamy or a monogamous marriage, that is being married to the same partner throughout your life. Now, moving on, if we talk about Murdoch, George Peter Murdoch, the functionist, the social anthropologist who wrote a book in 1949 with the name The Social Structure, Murdoch surveyed 1,231 societies from around the world. And he observed that 186 practiced legalized monogamy. And when we say 186 practiced legalized monogamy, what we actually mean is that monogamy or serial monogamy was the only acceptable marriage form. And in countries like these, I just rather this part. Yeah. In countries like these, bigamy is an offense. So the countries where monogamous marriages are the only marriages that take place, bigamy is a crime. So over here, we could say that acts of being married to more than one person at the same time is illegal and therefore a punishable crime, and we refer to this as bigamy. So, and for the countries where it is acceptable socially, legally, religiously to have more than one partners at a time. You refer to those marriages as polygamous marriages. So polygamy and bigamy, it's the same thing, but the way that society sees it is what makes them different. So bigamy is a criminal offense, whereas polygamy or polygamous marriages, they are their marriages where individuals have more than one partners at a time. So taking this ahead, when or as we take this ahead, I think I had explained you what serial monogamy also is. And when we talk about serial monogamy is when you have multiple partners over the course of life. It could be because of divorce, it could be because of cohabitation, so on and so forth. Now, over the passage of time, since we're studying all of this under the heading of changing patterns of marriage and cohabitation, over the course of time, there have been many countries, many Western countries, where now legalized same-sex marriages are allowed. So the last, if you talk about data from, I believe, 2020, there were around 29 countries where it was legal to be married to the partner of the same sex, which is of course different, which has of course changed today because there's been an increase in the countries that allow same-sex marriages today. So this is not really accepted, or this isn't really allowed by any religion, be it Islam or Christianity. But then more countries in the West, they have given into it. Could be because of any reason. It could be probably because of them not wanting on to lose on their vote bank. So So, as of right now, if we talk about the countries where same-sex marriages are allowed, they're around 20, they're around 38 countries. So, yeah, having said that, let's move on and talk about the other types of marriages. As we speak about these other types of marriages, number one, we need to know what polygamy or polygamous marriages where you could be married to multiple partners at the same time. Being married to more than one partner at the same time. Now this polygamy can be divided into polygyny and polyandry. Polygyny is when one man has multiple wives, and polyandry is when one woman has multiple husbands. Polygyny is more popular as compared to polyandry. One, it could be because of religious reasons. Islam allows it, and Islam is the second biggest religion in the world. Islam allows polygamy. This is found, or this is more common in Middle Eastern countries, even South Asian countries like Pakistan, African countries too. And on the other hand, when you talk about polyandry, polyandry is less common, s- less common as compared to polygamy. And however, there are some countries where polyandry is allowed. I mean, there are some parts of these countries, for instance, you could say Tibet, some parts in India, as well as China. So there was this study that was conducted by the University of Wisconsin, and they found around 453 societies that practiced occasional polygamy, right? While in another 588 countries, it was a common practice. So that's quite a number, 588 societies, right? So I just write it down just in case if you want to copy this as well. It's common in 588 societies. And it was 453 societies occasionally practiced it. So yeah, so this study was conducted in 1998 by the University of Wisconsin. University, let's just write it down just in case if you want to use this as a reference in your examination. Whereas when you talk about polyandry, if you want a reference over here as well. So there was this study in 2012 by Starkweather and Hames. You don't have to learn this, but if you feel like you don't want to miss an opportunity on an A grade, you might as well should. 80 cultural groups practiced polyandry. Now, taking this ahead, second, we're studying all of this under the heading of other types of marriage. So marriages. Next, we could speak about same-sex marriages. So there's been a recent change in the syllabus, which many of you would be aware of. Now you would no more be tested on same-sex marriages, but however, it's on your discretion. You want to use this as a reference in your examination, uh, you might as well know this. So for same-sex marriages, if you talk about current statistics, there's recently Thailand has been become the first Southeast Asian nation to legalize same-sex marriages, with the law coming into effect on the 23rd of January 2025. Additionally, we should also, I mean, if you want to, just for the sake of information, Israel recognizes same-sex marriages performed abroad, granting them full marital right within the country, even though such marriages are not performed domestically. So it's again, if you talk about the global perspective over here, the legal status of these type of marriages, that is same-sex marriages, it continues to evolve and at a very, very rapid speed. So as of February 2025, you could say Same-sex marriages are legally performed in 38 countries. So it's a long list. Taking this ahead, there are some countries where this is a punishable crime and offense. If we talk about this, there are around 72 countries. They've criminalized homosexuality. There are some countries where it is punishable by death as well. So, taking this ahead, number three, we could speak about. Let's pull this entire thing up if that works. Number three, we could talk about arranged marriages. These arranged marriages, they're practiced in many Middle Eastern countries, Asian societies, and religions such as Islam, Hinduism, Sikhism, or for the matter of fact, even Orthodox Jews. They promote this, and it's seen as a cultural practice. It's many people in these societies, countries where Islam, Hinduism, Sikhism, and Orthodox Judaism is a major religion. In these countries, arranged marriages are actually very popular. So, because of many cultural reasons, because of the belief system, the parents decide with whom their child would get married. I mean, we also need to keep in mind that arranged marriages do not have to be, or they aren't really forced marriages. So this is when the parents are involved, but they're not forcing a child to marry someone. So this usually involves the children and parents mutually discussing and deciding on a proposed marital match. Now, we're talking about different types of marriages. We initially had spoken about monogamy, and then we went on and we spoke about serial monogamy. We spoke about the difference between polygamy and bigamy. Then we spoke about polygamy and the difference that we see between polygyny and polyandry. Then we went on to discuss same-sex marriages, arranged marriages, and that's about it. Now, taking this ahead, let's talk about the global trends in marriage. So we're discussing the global trends in marriage. There could be many aspects that we could bring it under discussion over here. There are many people, or there are many sociologists that claim that there's been a decline in marriage rates as well. For instance, if we talk about the United States, a marriage rate they say has dropped from 16.3 marriages per thousand women in 2011 to 14.9 in 2021. That's quite a difference. Likewise, another aspect that we could bring in under discussion is a delay in marriage. Number three, we could also speak about how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected global trends in marriage. We could move on and we speak about the technological and social influences that have affected marriages too. There's been a rise of smartphones, there's been rise in social media usage, which has actually transformed how individuals form and maintain relationship. So yeah, that's again another global trend that we cannot ignore. Likewise, we could speak about how marriages, or the expectations that people have of marriages, they've been evolving, and which has again affected the global trends in marriage. Now, having said that, if we try taking some notes on this, and if we speak about data from four different countries, from the United Kingdom, from the United States, from China, from Japan, we see that there's evidence that suggests in many societies worldwide, there's been a significant decline in marriage rate. So the first point I'd like to bring in under discussion over here is a decline in marriage rate. As we speak about a decline in marriage rate, if I talk about a comparison over here, and we speak about statistics from United Kingdom, in 1972, there were 1,000, I'm sorry, 480,000 marriages recorded. However, if we talk about data from United Kingdom from 2015, this has shrunk to almost half. So apparently, as it looks like, marriage rate has been declining. Now, over here, it's important that we understand what the word marriage rate over here means. Marriage rate is the number of marriages per thousand people per year. So if you have a look at the number of marriages per thousand people per year, data from United Kingdom shows us that there's been a stark reduction. However, we could speak about another country. We could speak about data from the United States. If we talk about individuals from the age range of 25 to 34, we see that around 55% of them were married in the year 2000. And however, if we talk about an updated figure from 2015, we see that this has reduced to 40%. That's again quite a significant reduction. And if I talk about this data from, if we talk about a comparison, I'll just drag these statistics at a corner so that we have place for more. So when I talk about this, we're referring to individuals between the age bracket of 25 to 34 years. And when I talk about this, I'm talking about a drop in the marriage rate. Remember, when I use the word marriage rate over here refer to the number of married, the number of marriages per thousand people per year. So this again we see a decline here. And if we talk about a comparison, since we're talking about global trend, we're using the word global trend over here. If we talk about China, if we specifically refer to first time marriages, — 23.8 million. And this has been quite a reduction. This is a 41% decline. Likewise, I mean, you don't necessarily have to learn all of this, but having knowledge on this is great. It's amazing. You could learn one or two statistics, and that should be okay. So if we talk about marriages in Pakistan, the Gallup and Gilani Pakistan survey, it indicated that over 75% of adult Pakistanis are married, while 23% remain unmarried. So that's for in countries like Pakistan. I mean, I think we could write that down as well. Or 70% of adults are married. If we talk about data from India, so we're talking about different countries here. We spoke about China, we spoke about UK, we spoke about USA, we spoke about Pakistan, we spoke about India. And I would like to repeat, you don't need to learn all of this. So at max, you could learn a data from maybe Pakistan and China, maybe Pakistan and USA, maybe India and USA. 99% of women aged 35 to 39 are married, and 98% of men aged 40 to 44 are married. It seems like marriage has been a pretty universal experience to almost everyone in India. So if remember, we the last thing we'd spoken about was arranged marriage, and there's a survey that was conducted in 2018 which revealed that 93% of married Indians had arranged marriage, which again could be put to use as a sociological evidence. Now, taking this ahead, number one. Number two, we could speak about the second factor that I'd like to bring in under discussion over here is the difference in the age at which people are getting married. So we could say delayed marriage. You could read this, refer to this factor as delayed marriage. What is delayed marriage here? People are choosing to marry later in life. There could be many factors behind this. It could be an extended educational pursuit. It could be because of career development. It could be possibly because of a change or a shift in the societal norms as well. And this delay often results at a higher age at which individuals get have their first marriages. So if I talk about data from the United Kingdom, if we talk about the British government statistics over here, UK, data from the social trends 2003. What does this show us? Because I have an updated data to this as well. This shows that in 1961, the average age at which men were getting married in the UK was 25.4 years, and for women, it was 25.2 years. However, if you talk about data from 2000, this went up to 30.5 years for males and 28.2 years for females. And if we talk about data from around 2018, we could say that this went up to 37.5 years and this went up to 35.1 years. That's so if we try having a closer look, we realize that there's been an increase at the age at which people are getting married. So this is 38. Yeah, now 37.5 years and 35.1 years. Now see, we could see that how there's been an increase in the at the age at which individuals decide on getting married. And another important factor and another important point that we get that cannot go unnoticed is that females are getting married at an earlier age as compared to males. Just have a look at this. The difference being large or not, but this is, I mean, this very clearly shows us that females are marrying at a younger age as compared to men. Now, we could, if we take this ahead and we talk about a global example over here, we just spoke about UK. What about China? If we speak about China, in China, it has been seen that many people they experience a culture. There's a cultural anxiety that is experienced as a part of the Chinese culture that individuals traditionally are looked down upon if they're not really married at the age of 25. Now, why only blame China? If you talk about country like Pakistan or India, you come across similar cultural expectations too. So if you talk about China, we could write that individuals are traditionally looked down upon if they were not married by the age of 25. So, taking this ahead, in 2007, single women over the age of 27 in China have been commonly known as leftover women. Pretty mean, but it is the way it is. And let me just write it down over here. Leftover women. And you'd be amazed to know that this term leftover women, it has been officially recognized in the year 2007 by the All China Women's Federation. And this All China Women's Federation is a government-backed organization. Now, being labeled as a leftover woman, I'm sure you all have an idea that the extent to which I mean, it's stigmatized, it's looked down upon. It reflects the traditional values that prioritize and promote marriage and family, especially for women. But at the same time, this All China Women Federation, they also try to highlight the gender imbalance caused by decades of the one child policy. So when and as we speak about leftover women, which are also referred to as Sheng Nu in Chinese, I mean, we could just write it down. Sheng Nu in Chinese. And who left over women? Women, all right, unmarried women. So unmarried women over the age of 27. And like I said, this has been officially recognized in 2007 by the All China Women's Federation. So yeah, we spoke about how there are differences from different societies. Likewise, if you talk about countries like Pakistan, three-quarter of Pakistani and Bangladeshi women are married by the age of 25. Now, having said that, if we take this a little further, let me open up another page here. If we move on and talk about the third factor that we could discuss under the heading of global trends or global patterns in marriage, it has been noted that we could write women marry at a younger age. Women marry young. So, women worldwide marry at a younger age than men. Another point that I'm sure you'd all agree to the relationship between marriage and cultural similarities or background similarities. Marriages within or among individuals between a similar individuals with a similar background. Be it your religion, your social class, your caste, be it your religion, your social class, your caste, your region, your nationality, your educational background, etc., etc. If we talk about data from the USA, we see that poor people marry less. And because marriage today has been seen by many as something as a ceremony or an institution or a bond that only affluent people or rich people or wealthy people can afford. So people poor people marry less, especially if you speak about, I mean, there's a study that was conducted by Sarah Course, and Sarah Course, she is a professor emeritus at the University of Virginia. This lady, through a research, found that, we just write it down because marriages are expensive. Sarah Course in the year 2013 found out that in USA, a decline in full-time factory jobs. And see, this is a social change. There's been a rise in precarious jobs. Been a rise in casual low-paid jobs. People today aren't really certain about their employment, about their income, which has consequently led to them not wanting to get into the institution of marriage. So unemployed and those who are living on low wages or in poverty were less likely to marry because of high costs of traditional marriages. So we could write that unemployed or low wage earners were less likely to marry because of the high cost of traditional weddings. Of course, we're talking about a particular study that was conducted by Sarah Course and et al. There were others too. And this is pretty much a reflection of the American society, which might not be true in countries like Pakistan. You see poor males marrying poor females. That's pretty similar in India as well. But then if you talk about the USA, because in USA there are many other alternative options that individuals have as well, because there's been a major rise in cohabitation there. Or you could also blame recession, austerity, because of which there are many sociological commentators who claim that marriage has increasingly become a middle class institution. I could just write it down. Marriages have become a middle class institution. Now, another global trend that cannot go unnoticed here is when the effect of global marriages, or we could say inter-race or inter-ethnic marriages. Global migration means that there's greater likelihood of inter-ethnic marriages. Global migration could be a cause, has led to an increase in intra-ethnic or inter-race marriages as well. Inter-religion marriages, intercultural marriages, all under the same heading. Now, another very important feature that I would not want us to miss on is forced marriages. Now, as we speak about forced marriages, so, what are forced marriages? Typically when we speak about marriages, marriages are based on choice, they're based on consent or a mutual agreement between the parent, the children, which we referred to earlier as an arranged marriage. However, there has been significant amount of evidence that shows us that forced marriages are acceptable in many societies. And I was reading through an article which said that even today in Pakistan, around I'm not sure, I think it was around 18% of females, 18% of young girls, they are expected to they get married below the age of 18. So that's again uh that's again not so very positive, not a very positive thing. So in India, likewise in India, nearly one in every four young women in India, that makes it around 23%, they were married before their 18th birthday. And in Pakistan, it is around 18% of girls in Pakistan were married before the age of 18. So this would be taken as a forced marriage because if someone is not 18 as yet, they cannot legally consent to their marriage. So as we speak about forced marriage over here, a forced marriage, what is a forced marriage? A forced marriage is defined as a marriage conducted without the valid consent of both parties. Marriage conducted without the volunteer and valid consent of both parties, that is, both the spouses. So if we speak about a report by the UNICEF, Niger, an African country, has the highest rate of forced child marriages. where 76% of girls under the age of 18 were forced to marry. 76% of girls under 18 were forced to marry. So there was this another report. You do not necessarily need to learn all of this. Just learn the references that fascinate you, learn the references that you think actually increase your knowledge, that put the subject to use. So there was another report by the World Vision in 2015 that observed that in at least 12 less industrialized countries in Africa, as well as Bangladesh, 1 in 3 girls are married before reaching the age of 18. So, in at least 12 less industrialized countries, in Africa, 1 in 3 girls were married before turning 18, before 18 years of age. Likewise, if we talk about statistics from the Indian Ministry of Home Affairs, nearly 34,000 women and nearly 17,000 girls were forced into marriage. There are many different factors that have been contributing to this forced and child marriages. None of them, of course, justify this shameful act. It could be because of poverty, because there's been economic hardships that often lead to families having to marry off their daughters to reduce their financial burdens. We could also speak about cultural norms there, traditional practices lead to this. In many cases, there are societal expectations that perpetuate early marriages. In many cases, it's because of conflicts and disasters. For instance, situations like natural calamities, natural disasters, armed conflicts, the increase of vulnerabilities leading to a rise in child marriages. And of course, there are many negative consequences to this as well, which leads to health related risks. Of course, early marriage leads to more of chances of earlier pregnancies that are associated with child marriage, which significantly increase health risks for young mothers and the infants as well. Likewise, the education gets disrupted. Married girls often drop off school, which of course limits their future opportunities. And not to forget, when there have been many cases where child brides have been victims of violence and abuse, and they're more suspected, they're more susceptible to domestic violence. They're more vulnerable when it comes to sexual abuse as well. It's not that there haven't been efforts to combat this practice, which we should appreciate of as well, and which we should aware of too. So there have been certain global initiatives that aim to end child marriages by 2013. I mean, that's the aim. That's what they're looking forward towards. Let's hope they're able to. So these global initiatives, a part of them is sustainable development. They have many sustainable development goals. There are many organizations like the UNICEF. They're actively working to raise awareness. They're trying to implement legal framework. They're trying to even support affected individuals too. But unfortunately, despite of all of these efforts, the progress hasn't been at the speed at which it should be. The progress has been slow, and it has continued advocacy and intervention, but it's essential to protect the vulnerable populations from forced and child marriages. Another important factor that I believe we all should not miss on over here is the variations in terms of regions. Now, for instance, if you talk about, like, if you remember, I had mentioned Niger over here. I know where did it go? Yeah, here you go. So I mentioned Niger over here, right? So if you talk about sub-Saharan Africa, this particular region has the highest of prevalence when it comes to forced marriages and child marriages, with around 12% of girls married by the age of 15 and 39% by the age of 18. Whereas if you talk about South Asian countries like Bangladesh, Pakistan, or India, specifically when you talk about Bangladesh, Bangladesh has a very high rate of forced marriages and child marriages too, with around 52% of girls being married before the age of 18. So yeah, this is something that should not be ignored on. And if we talk about this, there's another important that I would want everyone to not forget or not miss on over here. Many victims, they're very reluctant. They show reluctance in terms of coming forward to report this, because they're not willing to report their parents. Because guess what, in situations of this sort, it's your parents who are involved, and you do not want to bring shame to your family, immediate, extended, or otherwise. And one more thing, because there's been, remember we had spoken about global migration over here, right? So because of global migration, these patterns, you get to witness them in countries in the more developed parts of the world, like UK as well. There were statistics from the United Kingdom in 2013 that suggest that there are around 8,000 forced marriages a year in Britain. Now, let alone be any sub-Saharan regional country or any South Asian underdeveloped, developing, or developed country. Even in the United Kingdom, statistics from 2013 show that around 8,000 forced marriages, they do take place yearly. Now, let's just sum this part up with, because we've spoken about three different arenas, let's write down about the global prevalence to this. So we could write down approximately 650 million girls and women alive today, as in 2025, were married before 18 years of age, or before the 18th birthday, 18 years age, which in other words means, if we talk about these annual incidences. That means each year an estimated 12 million girls each year under 18 are married, which makes it around one girl in every 3 seconds. So, yeah, these were some noticeable patterns that we just discussed under the heading of global trends or global patterns related to marriage. We spoke about a declining marriage rate, we spoke about delayed marriage. Uh, I think we could also write down. I think I just spare another minute and put up another factor. This was the seventh factor. Let's bring in the eighth factor over here. We could write down about how the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has had. Now, I'm sure you'd all agree this pandemic led to a significant decrease in marriage rates due to restriction on gatherings and economic uncertainties. In countries such as Mexico, firm. So let me just write this down so that it gets easier for you to. So because of this pandemic, there were restrictions on gatherings, and there was a lot of economic uncertainty. So if we talk about Mexico over here, and from March to December 2020, March 2020 to December 2020, there was a 54% decline. And even at the end of 2020, this remained at a 30% below the pandemic level. So decline in marriages. Well, this is again, examples like these, they're universal examples. Everyone knows about COVID, and this, of course, supplements your AO2 AO2 assessment criteria, assessment objective, that is applying the knowledge that you've gained on real life situations. Now, likewise, I wouldn't want to miss on technological and social influences. So, like I said, there's been a rise in the usage of smartphones, there's been an increase in the usage of social media, and this has transformed how individuals form and maintain relationships. So, we could say digital communication, or I mean, digital, or let's keep it simple. Let's talk about social media, and smartphones have transformed relationships today. Not even the way they maintain, but even the way they've been formed too, these relationships. Yeah. So these platforms can facilitate and hinder relationships too, which is seen by many as a relationship recession. Now, what is a recession where fewer people are entering into romantic relationships or marriage? So, social media, smartphones have transformed relationships today. These platforms can facilitate and hinder relationships. Both, for example, you could speak about relationship recession. What is this relationship recession? Where there are fewer people entering into romantic, or let's just keep it simple, entering into marriages. So these factors that we have just discussed, they to quite an extent highlight the dynamic nature of marriage as an institution, how it reflects broader societal changes, and how it affects individual preferences as well. So I hope this topic has been helpful